it is the Anfield Wrap with me, Beth Lindop, joined today by John, by Leon and by Jake to discuss Liverpool 4, Barnsley 1 in the FA Cup. It was a tense night at times at Anfield. Everyone was cycling through a number of different emotions. And speaking of cycling, John, Peloton. The Anfield Wrap's flagship show is in association with Peloton, Liverpool Football Club's official cardio and strength partner. This month, we've teamed up with Peloton to help us all get going with our 2026 fitness goals. So now if you log 3 activities on the Peloton app in the next 3 weeks, you can enter a draw to win one of 3 pairs of tickets for Liverpool versus Newcastle at the end of this month. This can be any activity from cycle classes to yoga to outdoor walks. You just need to make sure you join the Anfield Wrap team on the Peloton app and then sign up to the challenge. So for 102 of you to have completed the challenge, which is so far is great, and another 9 are on their way with 1 or 2. So any issues signing up, message John. He loves getting unsolicited messages, don't you, John? So
if it's about Peloton and about the app, I'm quite happy.
Yeah, only if they're about Peloton. Don't message him about anything else.
We're growing the community, we're enjoying it. I'm one of the, 9 I put who were on 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Did one last week, so I need to get up if I want to win them Newcastle tickets. I'm not even sure I'm allowed.
No, but it's good to do it for fitness as well.
Well, we do it together. I'm part of it, you know what I mean?
Being part of a real team effort.
Yeah.
And it was a team effort last night, Jake.
Nice.
Liverpool got the job done, 4-1 in the end. Would you fair to say that the result was slightly more convincing than the performance?
Yeah, maybe in patches, but it's just sometimes it's just about getting through these games. I think obviously there was a few moans and groans from the crowd, but I think ultimately a good result. I thought the goals were really good. It was a good result. I quite enjoyed being away from the sort of monotony of the Premier League, so to speak, and it felt like a bit of a slog at times this season, hasn't it? You know, with not really defence of our crown, it just felt a little bit depressing. Let's be honest. So I think the start of a cup run for me was exciting, and 4 absolute pearlers.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately the most important thing is, Leon, when you're in a cup competition is getting over the line, and there are positives to take for Liverpool last night, including some, as Jake said, some really great goals.
Yeah, look, I didn't go to the game last night. We usually do with the first game of the cup games we give them to one of the lads so they can take the youngsters and stuff like that. So I had the displeasure of watching it on the telly, and I was then seeing why everyone's social media and stuff was saying that they were battering us and stuff like that, because the whole rhetoric was around how well he'd done. I watched it again this morning, and he did okay, but we did pretty well. We have this obsession in this country, weirdly, with like a winger who gets the ball has automatically done an amazing thing, like that winger who was playing for Barnsley yesterday. I don't think we were ever in too much doubt. You know, there was a little bit, they didn't quite get started, and you could see that maybe they were underestimating who they were playing a little bit earlier on, letting them having a bit too much. And then obviously later on, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit, Szoboszlai's gaff. But look, I liked that they scored, and it made us keep some players on and made us get the fitness up of a few of the lads who need it and stuff like that. I think it was a thoroughly professional performance, barring one very short incident.
Yeah, it felt, John, to me, just like a typical cup game. I suppose, you know, critics of Arne Slot and Liverpool at this moment in time would say it's maybe a stronger team in the cup than maybe Klopp played at times. But even then, you know, there's been many a cup game over the years where it can be a bit of a slog at times. And you see, obviously, with the way Barnsley start the game, they come within a few inches of opening the scoring inside 30 seconds, that it meant a lot to them, and they would bang up for it, which is so often the case in these kind of ties.
Yeah, I think on your points on previous managers, I think they changed it depending on the situation, and sometimes situations can change week by week. I always remember with the famous Burnley one, 2005, Rafa actually picked a really strong team, and then the game got called off and got rearranged, and then he picked a weaker one because of sort of where it fell. So even the same tie, the same manager, same round, he's picked 2 different teams just based on when it's picked. And so I think, you know, there's times where all of them have got a little bit stronger than others. The manager obviously felt, by the fact that we're out the Carabao Cup and a couple of other things, that he could go strong in this one. And I'm glad he did, because there's a lot of people in the ground, like Leon's just said, who were taking the kids and stuff like that. I always think it's great that they get to see, you know, the star players. Obviously not all of them are available at the moment, but I was pleased to see a strong team. But then even though it was a strong team, there was still a lot of changes, and I made the points on the post-match show that of the back 6, 5 of them were different to the previous game, which is quite a lot, really. So on paper, it looks strong, but that's a lot of changes. I thought, considering you don't really notice Gravenberch doing much defensive work. We didn't half miss him, like, defensively. Like, I was like, you know, because I'm a little bit critical of Gravenberch in terms of how he anticipates danger and stuff like that. I say a little bit because I think, you know, you've got to make your choices on who you pick there, and they're going to be stronger in some areas than they are in others. And I'd always rather have a footballer, but you know, you see how much he is covering and how much he is doing when he's not there. We saw it earlier in the season, and you saw it last night. I thought he took a little while to adjust to Gravenberch, but even aside from him, the back four, it was only Virtue who kept his position or kept his place, and then it's a different goalkeeper as well. So maybe, given that and given the fact that, you know, Barnsley were full of everything, full of adrenaline, wants to throw everything at it, it was always going to be a period at the start where they blew as hard as they could. But that's why the opening goal is so important, and that's why the fantastic thing that Szoboszlai did do for Liverpool was score that goal, because I think that goal did a lot of things. I think it obviously put us up in the game, but I think it's also sometimes when you play it against a team who frankly aren't as good as you, to not show them any disrespect, to get ahead to that way, but it's good to just show them. And I think a few of them went, yeah, we haven't got anyone who could do that, and fair play. And it was a brilliant strike, and after that I thought, save for a couple of moments, we were pretty comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brilliant goal, Jake. It's one of those that the more you watch it, the better it gets. Just technique was outstanding, really, from Szoboszlai, and another really memorable moment for him in what has been a season of memorable moments.
Yeah, absolute chicken zinger, wasn't it? I don't think any keeper in the world saving that. He's had a few of them this season, hasn't he? You know, obviously the Arsenal free kick down the other end. And he's probably been the stand-up player, hasn't he? I think it's been said on a few different shows and by a few different people, but it's hard to look past him at the moment as our best player. I think with the era to kind of go, look, you know, it's that you get to kind of see the best and the worst of him, because he does all the doggies, he gets back in, he kind of, I think the lad's about 3 or 4 yards ahead of him at some point, and he's took him round and then shows his athleticism, but then I think maybe shows why he doesn't play a little bit deeper. I know there's been a lot of Liverpool fans who've kind of called out, you know, can he play a bit deeper, convert to play in front, and I think he's actually said himself he'd rather play deeper as well at some point. I think we've discussed before, but I think maybe you get to see why. And I know it's like it's a gaff, it can happen any time, but I think the manager's a lot more sort of concentrated on him doing what he does that end of the pitch, i.e. the shot, i.e. the press, i.e. like laying it off to wingers, getting in the box, than he is doing that stuff, because maybe that's where he's still a little bit naive, I think.
Yeah, we'll get on to his error in a bit, Leon, but just on the second goal, it was another moment of real quality, this time from Jeremy Frimpong. I've been very much impressed with him since he come back from injury. He's delivered a couple of assists as well, I think, in the last few games, and has been a real outlet for Liverpool. I think he offers something a little bit different. How pleased have you been with him over the past few weeks?
He's been like a new signing, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. No, but he's been great since he came back. One of the things I liked about last night was left foot, which was sound, because I just assumed he just did everything with his right foot because he plays on the right-hand side. So maybe you can have a little chat with Gakpo and tell him how you kicked the ball with your left foot. That'll be sound. Look, he's been really good. I think one of the things that we've missed, and I think we got a lot from Salah and Mane in the time, was that like rapid pace, to being able to break really quickly. And Virgil's great at flying that ball over the top and releasing you. And we seen it in the Arsenal game, I know it was mentioned on one of the other pods the other day, he just gives you that out ball where, you know, the defender's a little bit worried, to keep an eye on stuff. And not only is he really good going forward, and, you know, that's got to improve as he plays more games, he also gives you a little bit something different, I think, which we don't quite get from anyone else on the pitch, which is that rapid ability to just break free.
Yeah, there was a real sort of sense when they signed him in the summer, John, that the club viewed him as much as a right winger as they did as a right back. That was, you know, that's been one of the reasons that they gave for not necessarily signing another winger. And it was, you know, spoken about when Mo was at AFCON that he was going to be the player that probably stepped in and did a job. And that is, albeit he does start at right back last night, but he's not your conventional right back. I think Neil and Rob had a little bit of a disagreement on Twitter about where they see him long term. I think Rob was saying he's a winger, and Neil was saying no, he can be a right back. Where do you see him long term for Liverpool?
I don't worry about it, to be honest with you. I don't stress about it, because I think he's just a good footballer, and I think what he's shown is that we can use him in different ways as and when we need them. You know, I think when everyone's fit, which obviously isn't the case at the moment, or certainly fit and available with Salah being away. I think if everyone was fit, I think you'd probably be using him primarily at right back against teams who you should be beating, and you're thinking about, you know, an extra person who can overlap and things like this. And so against the teams who are likely to finish bottom 10 or 12, I think he makes more sense to a right back. But I've got no issues in certain games either. We've been playing, you know, right wing, right forward. I thought him and Bradley combined well, and I thought with the goal last night, as Leon said, he showed another aspect of his play. My concern about him, because we say right wing, you know, we don't actually play wingers, do we? We normally play a 4-3-3, if you like, and so your right forward needs to be able to weigh in with the goals. And my concern was, well, is he enough of a goal scorer? Well, he looked like a goal scorer last night, didn't he? It's a great hit, as Leon says, with his wrong foot as well. And when a player can do that, it's brilliant, because it keeps the other team guessing. Like, you imagine if you're playing left back, you're looking at Frimpong and thinking, well, he's lightning quick, but he's just going to try and go past me. He's just going to try and go round. So I'll buy myself half a yard there because I need it, because he's so quick, and I'll see if I can do that. Once he starts doing that, like, full-backs are going to go, well, what I'm supposed to do? I'm going to need some help. You're going to need to double up, because if you can cut inside and hit a ball like that, and it wasn't a fluke, it was a beautiful hit, then what am I supposed to do? And so I just see him as a real asset for this football team. It's a shame that he has been injured, but him coming in, you know, just the energy he's got, the personality he's got, and everything. I feel like how he's played has given everyone, including the crowd, a bit of a lift, which is great.
Yeah, just sticking with you on him for a minute, because I think the thing that I've enjoyed most about him is he is direct, he is obviously incredibly quick, he is incredibly skillful, all things that Liverpool forwards have been great at, you know, certainly under Jurgen Klopp and last season under Slot. And it does feel with Luis Diaz going, you've maybe lost that a little bit. Salah's obviously lost a little bit of pace, and it just feels like Liverpool have been a little bit too predictable, a bit staid going forward. So that having that quality is really important, and I think it'll be nice. You know, it doesn't look like it'll be this month, but going forward in future transfer windows to maybe get another couple of players who are capable of doing that as well.
Yes, someone who can carry the ball we've really missed, and I think that's the big thing that we miss about Diaz, really, is that, you know, you could give him the ball, you know, 40 yards in, he could take it up to 70 and he might win a foul or whatever, but he get you up the pitch, and players who can do that, we've looked a little bit short of. Obviously, they can pass it, you know, through and things like that, but someone who can just carry it when you're in a little bit of trouble, we've looked short of. He looks like he's got that in him. But just his pace and his directness, we've looked a bit slow, we've looked a bit pedestrian recently, and he's the complete opposite, isn't he? And so someone who can just inject a little bit of dynamism into what you're doing is good. And listen, I think this manager, compared to the last one, does want to play a little bit more controlled, obviously, and a little bit more patient. Would be a better way to sort of use for it, what he wants to do. But you don't want to become predictable. You want to have someone, you know, patient football is fine, and waiting for the openings and things like that if you want to play like that. But, you know, especially with this crowd, you do want someone who's able to go, well, actually, do you know what I mean? I can completely change the dynamic of this attack or sort of how we're playing. You're someone who's able to do that and just explode from nowhere, and he's got that. And so, yeah, he looks like he's going to be a real asset for us moving forward, which is great.
Yeah.
Surprisingly good in the air as well, I've noticed. He seems to win his fair share of headers for a little fella like.
Yeah, he does seem to lose his headband quite a lot. I've noticed that as well. I think most games I've seen him picking up his headband 2 or 3 times.
Jake has that problem for SBR.
I used to have that problem. Not anymore.
When he makes it 2-0, Jake, it does very much feel like, you know, how many Liverpool are going to win by. It doesn't feel like the game at that point is in any doubt. But typical Liverpool, they decide to make it hard for themselves. This time it was Dominic Szoboszlai with a pretty inexplicable decision to back heel just a few yards from his own goal. He got a lot of criticism afterwards. Conor Hourihane, who is the Barnsley boss, said it was disrespectful. Do you agree with that, or do you think it was just a little bit of silliness?
Yeah, back to me to weighing on Szoboszlai. Listen, if it comes off, everyone's clapping in the cop, aren't they? And I know a lot's been said, and sometimes we're all searching for talking points. It's a big error, isn't it? And I think that their manager's spot on to say he probably doesn't do that in a big game. But at the same time, you know, he's just put the ball in the top corner 5 minutes before and looked absolutely fantastic doing so, might I add. So I wouldn't give him too much flack. Going back to what I said before, it probably goes to a degree of why the manager doesn't use him as an option, maybe a little bit deeper of times. I've heard that a lot, be it on the podcasts or on the concourse or just in and around the pubs or whatever. Play Szoboszlai a bit deeper. We need his legs in there, this, that, and that. I think there is a bit of naivety sometimes to his game defensively. I think he's much better in the other end of the pitch, sort of affecting the game, be it with his legs or with the chicken zingers. And I think it might be something that he'll probably learn from, and I'm glad he's done it in that game rather than a bigger game. I think it was interesting to see kind of across the pitch, there was a little bit of players doing things that maybe they wouldn't normally do, or just felt a little bit sort of odd. Even like Gakpo being down the middle. I know he's done the last few games. Going back to what John was saying there about Frimpong and the discourse between, is he a right back or what? He's going to be our right back now, isn't he? Because Conor Bradley's injured. So I think we got to see maybe glimpses of what we'll see for the rest of the season, that maybe the manager's wanted to try in league games, but maybe hasn't had the confidence to do so because he's been playing 45 midfielders, so we don't get beat.
I think one thing that the manager won't want to see for the rest of the season is Szoboszlai trying to backheel it in front of his own goal. But it was a moment of madness. But I think out of probably all the players in a Liverpool shirt this season, he's the one that you can probably get away with it because he has been fantastic. And he was good again last night, that moment aside. Do you agree with the disrespectful idea, or do you think he was just a little bit silly?
I don't think he was being disrespectful to the club or to anyone who was playing that game of football. I think he definitely thought, this is a bit easy for me. I've just sped past this guy and picked it up, so I'll try and make him look a bit daft by backing into my goalkeeper. I'm made up it happened last night in a weird way, because one of the things that's always bothered me about Szoboszlai, if I can look at like what is the challenges, he does a lot of that little fancy back heel, flicky stuff in the midfield, and we've conceded a few goals on the back of them. Can't think of one right now. I'm sure if I phone me Alpha, he'll tell you. They've
got a list, haven't
you call list for everyone. But there's been a few times, and hopefully in that stage where he has looked like a bit of a dipstick and he's had to go in and apologise to everyone, that could be the lesson. That could be the big kick in the balls, which really helps him to step forward and push on a little bit. Because I think if I'm looking at any challenges or holes in his game, the only one would be for me is, do I really trust him to do that?
Yeah.
And now if he gets that out of his game and realises that it can lead to problems, he could step up and go even better, which for being probably our best player of the season is exciting.
Yeah, I am loath to criticise him too much, John, based on the season that he's had. But I think more generally that the frustration for me is Liverpool do have this horrible habit of letting teams back into games.
Yeah.
I think Neil wrote a great piece about it earlier in the season, that the masters of offering people encouragement. And, that's probably been the story of their season. Now, last night against an opponent that, is obviously considerably weaker than them, and they're at home and it's a cup game, you don't worry too much. But if that happens in the Premier League, and I'm not necessarily saying backheeling, but just making an error, which they've done, so many players have done so many times this season, it's a bad habit to have, isn't it? And it has proved costly.
Yeah, it is. And I don't want to go too overboard on criticising him because he knows he's done something wrong. He'll apparently apologised to his teammates. It's not the worst game in the world to make a bit of a dickhead of yourself, to be honest with you, because we won the game anyway. You'll learn from it. He's not going to do that again. So, I don't think we need to be like, going on about it for days and weeks. Really, he's made a mistake. He ends up looking the worst punishment's just making a show of yourself in front of 60,000 people and everyone watching.
Slot didn't look happy, did he?
Slot was funny after the game because he criticised him and then went, but I won't say what I think I'll say. I'll tell him privately, and I'm like, well, he does that quite a bit. He says something and then goes, but I'm not going to say anything. And you're like, well, you sort of already have, but it's quite funny. But he wasn't happy. But listen, it's not. This particular incident isn't a huge thing because he went on to win the game and he'll learn from it. So I'm a bit with Leon. I'm not too displeased that happened really, because I think, long term, I think, a bit of humility and a bit of like realising that, not everything that you do is magic isn't the worst thing in the world for any player really. But at the same time, it, like you say, Beth, it does feed into this. Leon used the word trust. It's mad. This team won the league last year, and I wouldn't trust them to run a bath. Do you know what I mean? At the moment, like, would you? You'd be peering around going, "Are you doing it right?" If you fell in, do you know what I mean? Like, you don't at the moment because they'll just do something every game, and fair play, they're varying it up.
Yeah,
we haven't had a back
finding
heel.
new ways.
Yeah, but they're doing something every game to to either throw it away or even if they don't, just to make it a lot harder. And that's frustrating, really. And they need to try and find a way as a team, not just Szoboszlai, but as a team, to just be a bit more grown up. Because it's the grown-ups who generally get the pots at the end.
There was one in the second half, actually, which when he went right back, which become his calling card, really, hasn't it, for the last 20 minutes or so, where he makes a tackle very similar to the Galatasaray one that was a little bit of a harsh pen, if you remember rightly. And I think it's almost like naive defending. I think it was, you know, from where I was, it wasn't a penalty, but it wasn't far off being a penalty, if you know what I mean. And if they get a pen there, their end behind, it could have been a bit more squeaky bum time than it was, you know what I mean? And that, for me, that's what I'm trying to say, is like, I don't think he's got that sort of defensive side of his game to the level where his attacking side of the game is. If
you want him taking risks. He's a magic footballer. You want him taking risks, and so let's have him taking risks far away.
Yeah, absolutely.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I do think that there is a world where everyone stays fit for Liverpool and he doesn't even touch right back and he doesn't have to defend as much as he.
Maybe not this season.
Maybe not this season. Maybe next season. Maybe pigs will fly before then. Who knows? In the end, it does take a real moment of quality, Jake, to wrap things up, and it's Florian Wirtz who provides it. As I said earlier on, he probably should have done a little bit better. I think I think it was Szoboszlai who gave him that ball, wasn't it? That. Quite a brilliant ball from right back, and he just sort of touches it over the bar, but he more than makes up for it with a fantastic finish, and that's 5 goal contributions for him now in the last 6 games. So he looks like he's finding his feet a little bit.
Yeah, you know, loads have been made of it, hasn't it? You know, the price tag, how he's come in, where he plays. You know, he definitely looks stronger and more comfortable. But I think everybody's aligned that, like, everyone just loves watching him play football, doesn't he? He's just such a good footballer, effectively. That's what I'm in it for. I think that's what a lot of people are in it for. You know, want to watch players who do stuff, and he does feel like he's finding his rhythm. The numbers you mentioned there will be backed up. I don't mind the missing chances. It's when you're not getting chances or you're not creating chances. That's what he's been brought in to do. And it was a bit of a tricky technique because it was whipped in at some pace and it kind of bounced just before him, didn't it? And he's gone with the outside of the foot where maybe he could have gone with his left or whatever. But the one that he does take is a great goal, and actually quietly what I loved about it the most is there seems to be a bit of synergy between him and Etitike now, and I think that's something that we've lacked all season, just sort of relationships on the pitch and, you know, the sort of familiarity in the patterns of play or whatever sort of terms you want to use from coaching 101 books, you know what I mean? But I think there seems to be a partnership there of, he's done a lot of his work kind of in that inside left channel, hasn't he, whether he started in the midfield or started in the front three. And I think him and Etitike have kind of struck a bit of a bond there. And you see with the 2 goals, it's what's in reverse basically of what they do, don't they? And that, for me, out of the whole game, was the thing that I was kind of coming home most happy about when I was having a cuppa about 11 o'clock last night.
Yeah, I think Jake's rightly on in the sense that probably the biggest compliment you can pay to a player is that people are excited to watch you play, and I think for me, whenever his name isn't on the team sheet, I'm a bit like, oh, you know, I would have quite liked to see him today, and you know, I was pleased when I saw him coming on, because regardless of whether it comes off or not, you can always sort of rely on him in this vein of form he's in at the moment to create something, to provide some sort of spark, some sort of moment of magic, and just pleased for him, because I think, you know, he's a young footballer, he's come to a new league, he's taken a lot of stick. I think Liverpool fans have for the most part stuck by him from the beginning, really, and have seen enough of him to know that he was going to come good. But it's nice to see that he now seems to have a little bit of swagger about him, and you can sense that he's growing in confidence with every game.
He's growing literally and in confidence as well, to be fair to him. I remember when Indy put a post on in the summer saying we were getting him, and I was like, oh, get in the bin, you dipstick. Because I thought, that's not happening. And then when it was talking about it and they said he wants Liverpool not sitting, I was like, shut up, we're not signing him. This is unbelievable. I've watched him loads in Germany, he's just magic. And when he's come in, and I've gone, oh no, he can't play footy anymore, because he was a little bit off the pace and he wasn't strong enough, and he was getting muscled out of stuff and that. You watch him now, he's winning balls back and he's coming back, and that quality of play has always been there. And I don't think even when he was getting muscled out and stuff, I think we didn't miss that. The quality was there, but what he's added is that strength and that ability to hustle and get the ball back, which is perfect for us. And, you know, I think, didn't he play the ball to Etitike when he scored in the Charity Shield?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, oh, go ahead, this will be sound. And then we've seen none of it. And then they've started developing that relationship again. And it's exciting because the other fella who I've been that excited by has been Ekatike. I just think he's great, both his Twitter and his fake Twitter and all the other stuff he's doing. But everything about him, he's just got a lot of character, hasn't he? But yeah, look, I think Florian Wirtz is amazing. And I'm sick of telling people who've been telling me he's a waste of money for the last 6 to 8 months that he's going to come good. And look, small things up to now. But, I think he's 5 goals, 2 assists or something like that in the last 5-6 games. So he's going in the right direction.
Yeah, now I'm going to shock you here, John. I'm not always right?
Wow.
Don't believe it.
And it's hard to believe, And when Liverpool were first linked with signing Hugo Ekatike, I thought it wasn't necessarily a signing that made loads of sense. I thought they'd already sort of parted ways with a project kind of striker in Darwin Núñez, and I thought, I don't see, if I was going to get anyone, I'd probably go all out for Isak, and because he's more proven and whatever. But he has been a revelation, really, hasn't he? From the get-go, he's now got 14 goal contributions across all competitions, which is more than any other Premier League summer signing. And he puts the icing on the cake last night. Just great to have him back, as he makes such a difference when he plays, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's just having a centre forward. I think you see what a big difference it is, just having someone who occupies that space. There was a few times first half where we got ourselves into good positions and someone looks up to cross or someone does cross. And in the case of, there was a really good Andy Robertson ball and there's just no one there. And I think, having him come on, him coming on and looking sharp and scoring's the biggest plus of the night. Well, apart from going through, it's apart from progressing to the next round, it's the biggest plus for me because he's been so good this season. But also, in the absence of him and Isak being injured, there just isn't someone else who can play there. Like Gakpo was sort of trying his best, bless him. But I think players will always go to their natural.
When you say bless him about a footballer, it's probably not the biggest.
No,
but I mean, it's not the greatest reflection of how he's done, is it?
Well, it's more to. I just think whenever you play someone out of position, I think they start there and then they naturally just go back to doing what they want to do, which is dropping deep or dropping wide.
And he didn't work as a striker under Klopp, did he?
Yeah, he's just not. He's not a number 9. He's certainly not a sole number 9 in a system where you've got Villa and Lindop on one side and whoever's sort of the other. And so I think we've seen Cody Gakpo deliver for Liverpool, but very rarely sort of in this position. And so just having someone else, someone come on who's comfortable there, was always going to be a bonus, whoever it was. But the fact that it's Ekatike, the fact that he scores as soon as he comes back, just makes you think, oh, right, here we go. Because, there was criticism in some camps of the performance last night. There's been ongoing criticism of the performances, and listen, people have the right to sort of say what they want, but I've always been hoping that as these forward players come back, then we'll start to see a bit more of a move towards the attacking football that we want. And him coming back last night is hopefully a step towards that, really. And he should be fit to start again on Saturday, you would have thought. He looked good, didn't he? Gets half an hour. He's quite a lot. I didn't expect him to get that much. He got 30 minutes and looked good and obviously sets one up and scores as well. And so just him being in the team on Saturdays will make us more attacking, just having sort of that ball. And him getting an understanding goal with Florian Wirtz is great news as well, because, we all love watching him play. I think it'll hopefully just be the start towards what more people want to see, which is not just Liverpool, picking up points and being unbeaten, but actually looking like a team who can challenge for the top honours.
So it's Brighton then in the 4th round, Jake. Now, it was at that stage of the competition last year that Liverpool go out quite sensationally to Plymouth. It was a frustrating result at the time, but Liverpool were obviously on course to win the title. They were still in the Carabao Cup, still obviously in the Champions League, but it felt like there was a lot more positive momentum behind them than there has been this season. With that in mind, I mean, you imagine he's probably going to go pretty strong against Brighton. How seriously would you be taking this competition if you were Arne Slot?
Very seriously, and I think not just my opinion, I think he will, because I think he'll be seeing it as our best chance of silverware. I think you've seen that in his team selection last night. And we don't have the biggest of squads anyway, so I don't think we've got much of a choice other than to play the players that are fit, really. And there's not much of a drop-off, is there, with the players who are coming in who are maybe just, somebody slightly ahead of them in the position, i.e., you know, Joe Gomez, Kanate, obviously the keeper wants to see a bit more football and stuff like that. So incredibly serious, and you know, I think Slot will be looking at this season as hopefully, you know, how we've played in the league anyway, hopefully something that we can improve on next season and challenge again. But I think if you can do that on the back of winning some silverware and already kind of be on that journey, then it'll be incredibly more helpful. I think being a bit more business-like about it as well, I think it'll probably be one of those KPIs, i.e. deliver silverware for this club every year. And for me, I would love a run in the Champions League. It's mine and everyone's favourite trophy to win, but I think the FA Cup is probably a bit more attainable for us this season. And yeah, a day out in Wembley in May, you can't really beat it.
Yeah, it's 11 games now, unbeaten, Leon, but it feels like the mood maybe more on social media, but it doesn't necessarily reflect that. And I think, you know, I don't think anyone connected with the club, including Arne Slot, will feel like it's been a hugely triumphant period, because it hasn't. You know, the football hasn't been great at times, and they've dropped points in games that you would expect them to win. How do you feel about it all? How do you reflect on this unbeaten run?
So I'll just touch on the Brighton game first, if that's okay. It depends on the Marseille result for me. Are you playing Brighton, to be honest with you? If you beat Marseille and then you've got Karabag at home, then you don't get them other games. And I think, you know, you're a little bit safer. In terms of the mood, so look, I think loads of people, when we signed Isak and this other fella and Wirtz and we were the champions, expected us to absolutely walk the league, and they're still thinking we should be in a situation to walk the league. And then every time we have a result or a corner goes against you or there's a throw in the wrong way, everyone's like, we should be winning the league. So people need to, it's been said on loads of shows, people need to change their expectations of what is happening with Liverpool this year. 5 wins, 5 draws, 5 clean sheets in 10 games, if you don't include the other night. It's not the worst set of results. Is it exhilarating? No. Is it the best football you've ever seen? No. But I said this the other week to someone. I remember when we were crap after we won the league with Klopp, and one of the best moments of football for me was at West Brom away when Alisson scored that goal. And that couldn't happen if all the other stuff hadn't happened before. And if I was being a crank, I wouldn't have been able to enjoy that magical moment where literally I seen Salah smile, like it felt like he smiled. It felt like he smiled at me.
Celebrated
It boss. And they're the kind of things that can happen on the way. Oh, we win the league? No. You know, there'd have to be a catastrophic fallout from Arsenal, and there'd have to be an unbelievable turn result for us. But we can have loads of little boss moments. We can go to Marseille and get a good result. We can get a good result going to Old Trafford, hopefully sing Ollie's at the wheel again before the end of the year and stuff like that. So there's loads of opportunity for us to do stuff. I just think maybe the online fan base and the fan base in general need to just reevaluate what their expectations are of what's happening, because they've got all the things that many people have talked about many times going wrong, but we're still in an all right position.
Yeah, I thought that the manager last night was funny, John. Not funny, just he seemed quite frustrated, I thought, in his post-match presser. And I think, listen, part of that is because an individual error makes Liverpool's life a bit harder. But I don't necessarily think he was happy with the performance, in terms of it wasn't exactly what he wanted. And I think there's maybe this slight misconception that Liverpool, the way they're playing now, is how the manager wants them to play. You know, I don't think for a second that Arne Slot's vision for this team is what we're seeing right now. I think it is. There had to be some pragmatism after a terrible run. There's been so many injuries. It just sort of feels like he's made some compromises, and again, the errors and the lapses in concentration haven't helped either. So I think, you know, it's important to remember that this isn't sort of the finished article for him. He doesn't feel like this team is 100% where he wants them to be, but it's positive that they've got a platform to maybe build on.
Yeah, as fans, you never know everything, do you? You don't know the conversations that go behind closed doors. We don't know exactly what Arne Slot's thinking, because he'll only tell you what he chooses to tell you. But all the evidence suggests he had a team last year and he's tried to make it more attacking. So we had a team last year that I don't think was boring to watch. There was more control than the previous manager, but you know, they had plenty of great games where they played well, and they were champions, of course, which is always the most important thing. And then he's tried to make them more attacking. So the Florian Wirtz signing, you know, getting these centre forwards in who are going to be incredible. The full backs that he bought who were just people who just bomb on, and so everything about that was about making us even more attacking. The idea that we're going to beat teams by pinning them right back, and so that's what he wants to do. You can see that from the players that we've bought as a football club and how we set up in those first few games. It was a little bit tough to watch some of those first games, but it was great to be winning, but obviously there was big gaps and things like that. He was criticised for being too attacking in those early games, plenty, but they were getting the results. So then, obviously there was a few injuries and a few problems, and we get a couple of goals that go against us, and the confidence seemed to go too quickly. I would say, which suggests that there's a couple of problems mentally, sort of, and things like that. But the wheels really come off, and confidence seemed to go, and he had to do something drastic after those 2 games, because if he hadn't have, I'm not sure he'd still be the manager. We don't know exactly, as I say, what's going on behind closed doors and things like that, but I think it is fair to say you can't keep losing by 3 goals at home to pretty average teams and expect to continue to be Liverpool manager. So we had to do something drastic, and that's what he decided to do. And all the evidence suggests that's going against how he sees football and how he wants to sort of do it. But he's done it, and as Leon says, to an extent, it has worked, because we haven't lost since that PSV game, and we've gone on this pretty long now unbeaten run. The challenge now is how he comes through that and how he gets back to where he wants to get. And no one really knows for sure whether he can do that or not. And I think that is fair to say. Maybe he doesn't even really know. Maybe he hasn't even got a pathway yet. These are all the unknowns. So has he got a pathway to sort of do that? Has he got the, in his head, the stages? Or is he just taking it game by game at the moment? And he's like, I'm just seeing who we've got available and the best way to set up in that game. And I'm confident we will get there as players, come back. These are all the things at the moment that fans are wondering, and as I said before, they've got a right to sort of say what they think about what they're doing, but it's tough to know much. It's tough to know exactly whether the man, because this is a different challenge. So he's faced different challenges as his time as Liverpool manager. Never mind in Holland, he's come through most of them. That's why he's ended up as Liverpool manager. That's why he won the league at Liverpool, because he successfully dealt with the challenges in front of him. This is a different one. Now, this is very different, and I would imagine very different to what he's had to deal with in the past. And there's a lot of eyes on him, and he's maybe doubting himself a little bit for the first time. I don't know. So since he started, can I sort of get through this? Have I got the players to play how he wanted? It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know whether by this time next year he'll be Liverpool manager or not. I don't know what he's being judged against. I don't know what his KPIs are. To use sort of Jake's point, I don't know whether Richard Hughes is looking at this thinking, well, he's doing a terrible job. He's got all these great players and this is how we're playing. Or he's looking at it like Leon said and going, well, you've got to understand it, this and that. And so actually I'd like it to be doing better, but we all collectively understand why we're in the position right now. I have no idea, but the situation is where we are, and I will never moan about winning 4-1 at home in the cup, because it's about sort of getting through. And I'm personally looking forward to having Ekitike back into the team, because I think it'll make us look better. I'm looking forward to Mo Salah coming back, because I think that'll make us look better again. It'd be interesting in whether he picks him straight away when he comes back, of course, but he'll have him available, and that'll be good. And so he's going to get this period to try and sort it out. So whether we like it or not, so we might as well get behind him and get behind the players and see where it takes us.
Yeah, it does feel, Jake, like it's been a bit of a weird season, in the sense that I'm not sure there's too many teams that the fan base is completely happy with the way that they're playing and the style of football. Obviously, Liverpool go to Arsenal last week, who we all expect will probably win the league this season, and they were pretty abysmal, really, at home, considering they were up against a Liverpool team who, they battled very, very well and deserve enormous credit, but weren't a massive threat. Manchester City have looked great in patches, but then you watch sort of the draw with Brighton a couple of weeks ago. I think they had 3 draws in it. 3 in a row, and sort of defensively they looked really, really open. And Tottenham, even Villa, who've obviously been flying really, really high. I've watched quite a few of their games and thought they don't actually look great. It's been sort of moments of real quality that have got them results, and that's great for them, but it's not necessarily like you'd look at them and say they're playing scintillating football at all times. And that's me not, I'm not saying that should be the blueprint for Liverpool, because everyone connected with the club, holds Liverpool to a higher standard and wants them to see that, the best possible football. But it does feel like what's happened over the past couple of months needed to happen, really. But what would you like to see a little bit more of going forward?
I think ultimately what we want to see is our best team playing the Liverpool way, so to speak, whatever that new age way is, performing consistently and challenging again. Obviously it's going to be tricky again this season, but I think I'm very much of the opinion if you can almost start the season that's coming round about now, i.e. a cup run, getting a string of results together. And I actually, go to John's point, I actually feel a little bit sorry for Slot in some ways, because I think his biggest strength has been, since he's been Liverpool manager, he's been really, really efficient at solving problems. Last year he tweaked the shape and he got the best out of McAllister, Gravenberch, the midfield, was on fire. He decided Gakpo wasn't a centre forward, played on the wing, he had a really good first half of the season. We stopped conceding the first goal, which was a problem the season before for anyone who's got a memory like mine. And he, and the subs.
Salah was his best season.
Salah's his best season. As subs, he gets loads of sort of praise with that. I think what he's done this season is he's tried to problem solve both with the signings before the ball's kicked, in game, or when there's been injuries or whatever, and he's created other problems on the back of solving one problems, which happens. With the Salah one, for example, is perfect. It's like we're struggling here. We're getting nailed down that side. We can't stop conceding goals. I'm going to play next to midfield and take Salah out the team. Then there's a media storm on the back of that. He's just starting to get Conor Bradley playing fit with Frimpong. Conor Bradley gets injured.
Isak
scores, gets injured. And I think it's just been one of those things. So less of that shite is what I want to see to us. We've had more of a consistent pattern of plays. Building a team that will look to compete on all fronts next season is what I'm after. And a bloody good cup run would be good for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, actually, Leon, is that I think these next few months should be also with a bit of a view to next season, because the back end of last season, as brilliant as it was in terms of some of the days that it gave us all, it was, it was tough at times. It was a little bit of a slog, and I think, Slotter's got a little bit of criticism for, being unprofessional, for allowing the players to go on holiday at the end of last season. And to me, I don't have any problem with that, because I think, if anything, that what happened over the summer just showed that, life is hard and is short sometimes. And when you do have those really special moments, then getting the chance to enjoy it should be taken and should be relished. So I don't have a problem with that. But there maybe is a school of thought that had Liverpool gone gung-ho right to the end of the season, maybe they would have come out firing a bit more this season. I don't really know. But I think, if you look at getting patterns and relationships and everything in place in the next few months, that could give Liverpool a bit of a head start next season.
Not to make me happier than seeing all our players in Ocean Beach in the last month of every season, presuming they've won the league. Not to make me happy, but I do believe, though, that Slot will have looked at it and gone, I've dropped a bollock there, because these are finely tuned athletes, and when you just tick it off a little bit, I think that's part of the problem that's gone into the close season, and then part of the problem that's come into it is that they weren't, because, they looked a shadow of themselves. They looked like a cobbled together Sunday League team who've just dragged some people out the pub sometimes.
Nothing wrong with that,
nothing wrong with it at all, but I don't want them playing for Liverpool. I want them playing for the dog and duck. I think, look, it's lessons for them. If you asked before, like, what do you want to see? We're on 2 points a game average last 10 games. In the next 10 games of the league, I'd like to touch that to 2.2 or 2.5. That'd do me. The performances, I'm not too worried about. If one goes in off someone's arse and it's a winner, if whatever, I'm not too worried about, because I don't think we're in the luxury of being able to say, like Arsenal have got 20 really good players. They should be going, our performance isn't good enough. They should be looking at the Liverpool game and going, we need to improve on that, because we've got all of the skills and all of the quality on the bench. Whereas we just haven't got the personnel, so we need to kind of get through the next 10 games again. 2.2 points per game. Even take a loss in them 10 games is fine. That'll put us in the Champions League, and obviously the added spice of the cup games, which would be lovely. And again, Marseille, big massive game for us this season, I think.
Back to business now, but before we get back on to the football, we're going to talk about the album of the week, which is a new segment that Neil introduced last week. I've been quite nervous about this, actually. It feels like quite a lot of pressure. So whoever is hosting gets to choose the album of the week. So that is me this week. And I have gone for Olivia Dean, The Art of Loving, which is my favourite album at the moment. Came out the back end of last year. Just very chilled vibes, a little bit jazzy, a little bit Motowny. It's just a perfect sort of if you're cooking a meal, if you're having a lazy Sunday morning. It's a great album. So that is my...
She was great on Jules Holland.
She was great on Jules Holland.
She's just, she smashed it last year. And what I really like about the whole thing was, like, she seemed to, I mean, obviously she's really talented and, like, the songs are great, but I think part of the reason she did really well is that people just really liked her.
Yeah.
Like, she'd go on and do something and go, she was nice, let's get her back on, do you know what I mean? And, like, people, like, obviously music lovers, like, I saw her doing some stuff with Glastonbury at the BBC, and it was just like, oh, can we get Olivia to sing here and stuff like that. She was doing campfire stuff. I think she's just, like, comes across as a really likeable person, and no one seems more surprised than her by, like, how big it's gone, because, like, she's doing, like, you know, huge gigs now and stuff like that, isn't she? So she honestly, career trajectory is like Beth Lindop. It's like through the skies.
Should we just do this instead of the footy?
Yeah,
It's so much more fun.
she seems lovely.
And she's like, I love when she's performing. She's just really feeling it.
Yeah.
She's like, she's having herself, isn't she? But like, you know, fair play.
Yeah.
So a big year ahead for Olivia Dean, and a big year ahead for the Anfield Wrap, John. If you'd like to tell us about what you'll be up to in the
I mean, talking about big dates and big tours and big events. Yeah, we're doing Ireland in February, so really looking forward to that. So 4 dates. Dublin is sold out. Derry is apparently very close, so hurry up if you want to get tickets for that. We're doing Limerick as well, which is sold really well, and Belfast, which is a nice big venue, the biggest one we've done in Belfast, but always nice to, we always get a really good crowd in Belfast, so that'd be great as well. So they're all in February, and then March is Australia and New Zealand, so I think 6 scheduled shows there and they were great last year. Really good to get over there. It's been a while since we've been 2013, and we enjoyed it so much that they've booked it again. So that is in March. All the tickets are available. theanfieldwrap.com/TAW live. I don't know which camera I'm doing it into, but
all the cameras.
theanfieldwrap.com/TAW live if you want to come and watch this in person.
Very, very exciting. Very well sold there, John, as well.
Thanks very much.
It does seem, though, going back to the football, Jake, that Liverpool won't be active, or particularly active anyway, in the January transfer market. What are your thoughts on that? Did you feel like they could do with adding a couple of bodies in the next few weeks?
I do, yeah. It still kind of blows my mind slightly with the amount of cash that we've flooded in the summer, that the solution to all our problems seems to be to go and blow more cash. It's slightly mental, but that's the world that we live in. But I don't think it's to do with the price tags or the amount of money that we spent, really. I think it's more bodies and certain qualities in certain areas. I think we left ourselves short. I think we were short the year before. We won the league, but we didn't compete on all fronts. And then we've actually ended up with a squad that's similar size. Obviously, different things happen in different positions. We sell a couple, obviously tragedies, but we've left ourselves pretty light in areas. Everyone keeps talking about the centre-back. Yeah, granted, but you mentioned before about the Arsenal game, there was no sort of pace and power on the wings, was there? And if Frimpong's now our right back, which looks like he's going to be, sorry Neil, I think he was because Bradley's injured, then we're going to lose him from a wide forward perspective. So for me, yeah, there's still, to be honest with you, that's how long you've got to do the whole show, and there's still question marks in a lot of the areas for me. But it's just what you're going to get in January, what deals, and I think maybe the slightly large elephant in the room is that all the other clubs in the world now know that we need players and we've got cash to burn, which hasn't always been the case. We've normally strengthened from a sort of position of strength and kind of pretended that we haven't had as much money as we've got. Which now everyone knows we've got loads of money. Yeah,
the one positive in the next few weeks is that Salah will be returning from AFCON soon. He plays Senegal tomorrow in the semi-finals. Obviously, fingers crossed for him getting through. At this point, it doesn't really matter if they get through or not in terms of when he'll be back for Liverpool, because I think there's a third place playoff on Saturday, final on Sunday. It would be great to have him coming back with a spring in his step, having led his country to the AFCON title. But it does feel like the squad is very light to me. I think last night really sort of solidified the fact that yes, Liverpool have options in attack, but they're not necessarily options that are going to take Liverpool to the next level, not necessarily options that the manager will be comfortable using in big games. I think Chiesa, is loved by everyone in the fan base for many reasons, but in terms of his quality, I don't necessarily think it's what you'd want from a fourth choice attacker for Liverpool when they're having to play so many games. I think Rio Ngamoa, there's been a lot of clamours for him to just play a little bit more, and I've sort of agreed with that at times, but then equally I thought last night you could still see he's still very raw. I mean, he gave it a good go, and he's got something a little bit unpredictable about him, but he didn't necessarily do loads, and I think he goes off with cramp in the end, and Slot made a bit of a point afterwards of sort of saying, I've said to him, the Premier League's even more intense than this, so if he's getting cramp after 70 in this kind of game, it's going to be even more of a physical battle for such a young player in the Premier League. So to me, it does feel like a little bit of a risk that Liverpool are prepared to go into the second half of the season without any additions.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, look, I don't really like transfers. Sorry, Rob, if you're watching, because I don't feel like it's my job to pick names of people who we want to sign and stuff. I enjoy it when they've come. My job's to go.
It's Rob's job.
Yeah, it is Rob's job. But on
And see him peering around your shoulder there as well.
There's two things on the transfer stuff. One is Gay nearly signed and he was getting his pictures took in the kit. So the only thing I can think of is that they must understand that that's a gap in what we've got. So I can't understand that not getting Vix. I can't get my head around that. He's not, even if he's a little bit more expensive or, all this City rubbish being in for him and Arsenal and stuff, I can't get my head around how they haven't got someone else in at centre-half. I can't understand that. And then someone said to me, you're talking about Salah, someone said the other day, what about Salah coming back? Are you happy he's coming back? And I was like, what? Are you happy that Mo Salah's coming back to play for Liverpool? Are you nuts? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people have been clouded by the fact that he was doing his Mo Salah thing with his interviews and stuff like that. On his day, he scores your goals on a regular basis. He's really good. He's rapid. He can do loads of stuff.
He's looked good at AFCON as well.
He's looked good at AFCON. Hopefully, I think a few times with Mo, and he's kicked a bit of a fuss up over stuff, and he's come back and proved a point. And hopefully, Mo Salah's going to come back and prove a point, because he's probably been watching a few of the Premier League games and thinking, I can make a difference to that side. And I suspect he wants to come in and stick it right up Slot and everyone else who's sitting at the bottom and score a load of goals. So I can't wait. And again, it's mad. Mo Salah's coming back to play for us next month. It's great. I just can't understand the whole idea behind what you think. Will he play him and stuff like that? It's like, yeah, 100%. He's probably number 3 or 4 on my team sheet.
Yeah. What are you thinking, John? If you were Richard Hughes right now, would you be getting out the checkbook?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I mean, Leon makes a great point there, in that no one in the Premier League will sign a player as good as Mo Salah in January. So whatever they do, Semenyo, whoever, there's no one who's getting as good as played as we're getting for the second half of the season. So that is a positive, but we still do look a little bit light. We know how they operate. We know they'll wait if they can't get the one that they want. So we've all just got to hope that the one that they want becomes available. Is that Mark Gay suddenly, going for a price that they deem acceptable to them in January? Is it a forward option that they're looking at that they can bring forward, like happened with Diaz and Gakpo? Is it a midfielder? I don't know. We don't know every decision that they're looking to make and every player that they're talking about, but you just want to see the manager given every chance to show that he can take us forward. And listen, he's been part of obviously the decisions in the summer, so anything around the squad looking a little bit unbalanced or a little bit short, he's got to take part of the responsibility for. But we are where we are now, and I think it's a bit of a risk. Just thinking we'll be okay until the summer. I think they probably will get Champions League with what we've got, and maybe they'll think, well, that's enough for this year, and that's with everything that's going on, and in the summer we're better off spending this money on getting exactly who we want rather than panicking and getting players in who aren't as good. I just feel like we're 1 or 2 more injuries away from really sort of struggling as a team, and you can't assume that people won't get their act together, who are behind us as well. So it doesn't look like they're going to, but you never know. I'd feel a lot better if they bought someone. I think most people would. I think the manager would as well, because regardless of what we think of Chiesa or Ingemoa or Endo or these lads, it doesn't really matter. The point is the manager doesn't look like that he wants to start them in meaningful games when the chips are down, and so that's the most important thing. So one more of those, two more of those, I think would really help us. And there is still so much to play for. I'm talking there about Champions League qualification, but we're still in the FA Cup, obviously. With the Champions League, there's a real opportunity to do something there. So, because no one's looking outstanding at the moment. Yeah, I'd love to see us do it, but we've all got to be realistic as supporters, that we know how they operate, and we know that if they can't get who they want, they'll wait till the summer. So unfortunately, I suspect we're going to be disappointed.
Yeah, I think the Gay one is an interesting one. I find it hard to see that Liverpool would let him go to City without putting up any kind of fight, but who knows. Just want to touch a little bit, Jake, on Xabi Alonso. That was the big news before kick-off yesterday. I couldn't quite believe it, actually, when I was told on my way into the ground that he had been... Well, he's not officially been sacked, has he? They've parted company, is the diplomatic way it was phrased. It feels like now he's going to be an ever-present in discussions about Liverpool this season, because I think, he was a lot of people's number one choice when Jurgen Klopp left. I think the way a lot of people feel at the moment, and rightly or wrongly, have maybe made their minds up on the manager and will not be convinced by him no matter what he does, and that is not our place to judge that or question that. That's absolutely fine. But it does feel like it's maybe another headache that the manager doesn't need now, because it feels like every bad result or performance over the next few months, you're gonna get people sort of talking about Alonso.
Maybe, but I suspect Xabi's going to be on the beach the next 6 months. Probably want it that way after it's gone at Madrid. But I think, I feel slightly uncomfortable talking about the manager with these things, because I just think, we won the league 6 months ago, or slightly over now, and he gave us some of the best days that we've been going on for ages. That being said, Xabi Alonso feels a bit inevitable for me. Whether that's 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 years. He's going to be a top-level coach in Europe, and he's got an affinity to the club, and at some point he'll want to manage in the Premier League, and it just won't look right him being at Chelsea or Arsenal or in Club B, and I think it will happen. He's my childhood hero. I would love to see him put on a pair of Preds and ping it to Mo Salah insane, and then we see all those clips. That being said, I think this manager's got unfinished business, and we should all back him until that time comes. Yeah,
how are you feeling about it, John? Did you get a little excited tingle when you saw he'd been sacked, or do you think it's maybe, like Jake said, one for the future?
I wouldn't say I got excited, because I don't think it'll happen now. I don't think it's going to force their time scales on it. Again, it's really hard and to know exactly where Richard Hughes is at, where Michael Edwards is at, whoever it is who's making these decisions, or a combination of the two. We don't know how high Alonso would have been in that pecking order for replacing Jurgen Klopp, because he ruled himself out quite early. So whether he was someone who they were really hot on or not, or whether they hadn't even made the decision or not, maybe they were looking around to see who was available, and then Alonso ruled himself out, and they were like, right, forget about him. And so we don't know how much how keen they were, on him ever getting that job, and maybe, he was just one possibility that was closed down quickly, and then they didn't really think about it again. We also don't know, as I said before, what marks are attending Gabbana slot for this season. We can all say, well, we think he's doing a bad job or an okay job in the circumstances, whatever it is. But how do they view it? Do they view it as a lot happened, and so a lot happened that's out of his hands, and so we understand it, and we still back him and moving forward? Or are they looking at it thinking like, I'm not sure that this guy is the guy to sort of take us forward anymore. He did a great job last year, but is he what we want? So it's really hard to know where these people are at, because obviously they don't say anything and they don't come out and talk. So you're not even getting clues. You're not even getting the dread of voter confidence, if you like that. It's just sort of complete silence. And so I find it hard to, when Alonso gets sacked, to think, well, this is more of a possibility or less of a possibility, because I don't know what they think about him, and I don't know what they think about Arne Slot at the moment. I think he's a brilliant manager. I think I wouldn't look into what's happened at Madrid personally, negatively or positively. I've seen people try and go both ways, and people say, well, he's failed at this big job. Why would you want him at Liverpool? I've seen people go the other way and say, look at his win percentage record. I would just write it all off and just say, like, it's a basket case club. He's walked in to what looks like an unmanageable set of players.
That Kylian Mbappe clip.
Yeah, exactly. If you're someone who wants how Liverpool and Real Madrid view their managers, I think is completely different as football clubs. And look, you can look silly criticising them too much, because they'll probably win the Champions League in May. Do you know what I mean? And so they've won more than any football club on the world stage in terms of the very biggest trophies. And so they're obviously doing something right. But at Liverpool, we look up to the manager, don't we? We put them on the pedestal. We've got the heads like the Mount Rushmore on the flags and stuff like that. Obviously, we idolise players as well, but the manager's the leader. It's just not the case at Real Madrid. So he might have thought he knew what he was walking into because he played there and everything, but I just don't think they see the managers in the same way. So it doesn't worry me at all for the future. Him not. I wouldn't use that as a black mark against him or a tick against him. I think it'll be something he'll learn from. Maybe he'll think, did it go too hard or heavy too early on certain things? Maybe, I don't know. But I think, in most people's heads who were looking at the next manager, they'll sort of write that off. My concern with the whole thing, and Jake's touched on it there, I think his next job's in England. And I think you've got to think about, it's the sport director's job to think, okay, well, can we improve on the head coach? Just like, can we improve on the centre mids? Or I think they'll look at it like they do with the squad. They'll look at it and say, okay, well, we like the squad, but can we get a better left winger? Can we get a better centre forward? Can we get a better everything? Can we get a better head coach? That's their job, to sort of be looking at that and not thinking, oh yeah, but he won us the league, so this or whatever. Like, Liverpool Football Club should be trying to get the best at everything, and that includes sort of the head coach. So that's how they need to look at this situation. And they also need to think, well, how would we feel if Pep Guardiola goes in the summer and he takes the Man City job? How would we feel about that? Because you can't say, oh, well, we're not ready yet, so just stay on that beach. Because at some point he's going to want to come to work. And I think, I bet my last pound his next job will be in England.
Or Munich, Bayern Munich. I think that was the only two. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, I just think he's got his eye on England, and I don't think he's the type to just go all the way for Liverpool because I played there. I don't think he's that kind of guy at all. I think he'd be really keen to take that Manchester City job. I think he'd be keen to take the Arsenal job, but I don't think that's going to come up anytime soon, because Michael to his mates, Mikey Arteta, they've backed him now, and this they're getting sort of the rewards for it. So I don't think that'd happen. And so those three, Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester, but the Manchester City job might come up and they might go for it. How would the club feel about that? That's sort of what they've got to look at, really. To be completely honest, me personally, if I woke up tomorrow and Xabi Alonso was Liverpool manager, I'd be made up. But that's just because I love him. And that's because I think what he did at Leverkusen was unbelievable. And I don't think to go the whole season unbeaten, including Europe, it's fucking unbelievable. And obviously there's the Florian Wirtz and stuff like that. But I just love him. And I think he would have a better connection, I think, with the Liverpool fans than the current manager does, until he starts getting beat. But he would sort of have that, and I think that is important. We talk about the Holy Trinity. I think we've lost that a little bit, if I'm honest with you, the connection between fans, manager, and players. And I think he would help bring that together. But Richard Hughes isn't going to watch this saying, "Oh, I'm going to give him the manager because it makes Gibbo happy." Do you know what I mean?
Well, stranger things have happened.
So I think they'll stick with him for now, but I think that it's probably overall the right thing to do, to see, well, can he sort of get us through this? But they do need to be a little bit careful, because he's not going to wait around forever. And I agree with Jake. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, I think just to wrap it up, Leon, I think for fans, it's probably quite an emotional an emotionally motivated decision, like John said. I think, you know, there's a lot of fans who adore him for what he did for the club as a player, and therefore would want him in tomorrow. The club don't operate like that. The club shouldn't operate like that. I still think, you know, that there's an enormous amount of respect within the club for Arne Slot, and I don't think they will be guided by the clamour from fans to get rid of him because it makes a few fans happy. But I think that the issue now for Arne Slot is whereas before I think there were a lot of people who said, well, if Arne Slot were to go, there's not necessarily a ready-made replacement. I think now people will think that there is, and that is something that, you know, might be sort of weighing on his mind a little bit in the next few months.
I've been all over the show with this Xabi Alonso stuff, I'm not going to lie to you. So obviously he's left Madrid, and it's like your mate's got a really stunning missus, but she's a bunny boiler. So like you're gutted for him, but you made up he's got out of there. And then you've got the whole point of, you know, as soon as it's 0-0 at half time against Burnley at the weekend, everyone's going to be saying we should get Alonso in. And then you've got the whole, I feel really guilty thinking maybe we can improve on Slot because he won us the league last year. And then I'm like, oh yeah, but what about if City get him? I'm all over the show. I need to drink, and I don't even drink.
Well, I mean, that feels like as good a place as any to end the show. We were going to talk about Burnley, but I mean, does anyone want to talk about Burnley?
The show's later in the week.
That's
the beauty of the tour player.
It's exactly what John said. But for now, thank you very much to the lads. Thank you to Milo for sorting out the images. Thank you to Andy for sorting out the sound. Thank you all for watching and for listening, and we'll see you soon.